Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting for Monday, July 14th, 2025. Welcome all members, folks joining us in the gallery and via the live stream. We're glad everybody's with us. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and the deputy mayor has that.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing, along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. Third item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. No additions, deletions, or amendments, and no minutes to adopt. So we're on to public meetings. And next on the agenda is a public meeting for an official plan amendment. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act. If anyone from the public is interested in this official plan amendment and wishes to receive a notice of the decision, please send an email to publicmeetingcomments@brucecounty.on.ca. First, we will receive a report from planning staff. Then we will hear from the public who are here in person, virtually, or who have submitted correspondence to the email address that I noted earlier. Then council members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the official plan amendment until we have heard from the public. Members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this amendment. I'm not supposed to read this, Don?
Still appeal the decision, but it's just it's not limited anyone.
Oh, okay. So members of the public are advised that you are able to appeal the decision on this amendment without limitations. After we've heard from the public, council will discuss and consider a recommendation on this official plan amendment. So I will now declare the public meeting to be open, and we'll ask our planners to present on the file. We'll start with the town's manager of development services, Jay Posner.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. I did request to speak first tonight, and it's it's not an ego thing, but I did want to highlight that this is, in order of that this follows closely to what council supported for a long time, which is to develop and implement a cultural heritage program in the town, and started with the development of the cultural heritage master plan, which was adopted in May. And at that time, we said we would, the first action would be bring forward planning policy update to make sure we could do the land use planning part of cultural heritage planning well. And before I turn it over to Jake, I did want to thank council for their attention to that, and certainly the contributions from Councillor Grace, Vice Deputy Mayor Maya, Deputy Mayor Huber, and the other councillors that, past councils that have brought this forward. Without, this is not meant to pander or be maudlin in any way. It really is an earnest comment about the importance that cultural heritage is to the town. It's not just, it's not just a matter of consistency with the provincial policy statement. It's an acknowledgement of the economic and social importance of heritage features in the town. And this is our, it's just one of many steps that we want to take over the next little while. So, Jake, guide us through any issues that have come up through the process, I guess. So,
well, thank you, Jay, for keeping your ego in check and not pandering. The planner.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. I'll keep it short, not much to add to what Jay said there. Just to provide in summary the rationale for this, and this just being one recommendation to flow from the town's cultural heritage master plan is to add these official plan amendments. So broadly, the array of amendments will help to align town policies with current provincial direction and terminology, Of note there is the sort of raft of changes that have been coming to Provincial Policy Statement, Planning Act, Ontario Heritage Act over the last 3 or 4 years. So bringing the town's OP up to speed there. Providing language that is clear and defensible. And finally, clarifying processes for Planning Act application reviews as they may relate to cultural heritage resources. I regrettably have to spend a minute of this presentation reading into the record a mistake that I made. I am sorry for that. So an email I sent out this afternoon highlighted one section of the amendments that I did not put in the draft bylaw. So just to ensure that these are read into the record for anyone at the public listening, they are as follows. So replacing section 1.2.6.1 with it is the goal of this plan to recognize that the character of different areas of the town are distinctive and are characterized by local landscapes, existing buildings, and built form, including unique cultural heritage resources. Objectives to flow from that are A, the town intends to define the unique character of the different areas of the town, including that of the town's character as a community through a future policy or plan. B, to ensure that future development or redevelopment respects and is compatible with local landscapes, existing buildings and built form, and the cultural heritage resources of the surrounding area. C, to conserve the historic and tourist-oriented waterfront community character of Southampton and ensure that the scale of development in that community is compatible with its character. D, to maintain the rural areas by directing the majority of growth to the Saugeen Shore settlement area. E, to direct large-scale developments to the Port Elgin community to promote Port Elgin as a major service center for surrounding areas. And finally, F, to protect and enhance the built form character of downtown areas through the implementation of design guidelines and conservation of cultural heritage resources. So that's what was left out of the bylaw. I just want to stress for the committee that, for council, that those aren't pulled out because they're exceptional or to be highlighted in any way. If you had focused your review on the amendment tracker and the revised official plan, those are right in there and shouldn't come as any surprise. So I will leave it there, but I'm happy to answer any questions when the time comes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll ask then if there's anyone from the public here to speak either in support of the official plan amendment or with questions, concerns, or objections to the amendment. I don't see anybody in the room with an interest in speaking to the matter. Is there anybody joining us online? The clerk says there is not. And I guess, are there any written submissions that were not already discussed in the planning report presentation or oral submissions? No. All right, so then I will ask if any council members have final questions before we close the public meeting and discuss the official plan amendment. So questions at this time from members, and we'll start with Councillor Grace and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question in terms of procedure. If I have questions that are suggestions or suggestions for amendments, should I wait on that until the second part?
Yes, I think if you'd like to make amendments, we'll do that once we've closed the public meeting.
Okay. So I do have a couple of questions, though, for clarification. Jake, I wondered if you could give an example of a site of conscience in Ontario. That's under section 1.2.5.2. Sorry.
Sure. So thank you for the question that you provided by email this afternoon. I'm happy to follow up on that. I just want to make sure it's clear for the committee that that specific language, sorry, council, that specific language of sites of conscience isn't in the draft OP or being specifically recommended. It's brought up in the rationale discussion. So that I just felt that context is important to share. But in terms of sites of conscience, it's raised there to provide justification for this slight modification under that objective of the two words where appropriate, but that objective without those focuses on the ability for heritage resources to attract economic tourism opportunities. So this idea of where appropriate relates to these sites of conscience in that there may be certain sites, particularly those of cultural heritage value, where it may not be appropriate to necessarily focus on the economic opportunities that could be associated with the site. And to answer your question, I know you asked for an example. While this isn't a local one, I felt like it was a valuable one. The ongoing discussions, say, with First Nations and as they contemplate what to do with existing residential school buildings. In some communities, these are sites of pain, and the appropriate course of action is to remove it. In some communities, they've decided to conserve, celebrate, turn them into museums. So the example I'd shared with you is the Woodland Cultural Center in Brantford.
That's it for now. Thank you.
The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask for some clarification. In the amendment tracker, there's two different references. I'm actually looking at page 90. And you read something, but in the amendment tracker, there's an item that says to conserve the historic, and the wording would be to conserve the historic and tourist-oriented waterfront community of Southampton and ensure that the scale of redevelopment in that community is compatible with this character. And re is in brackets. And then the next one right underneath it is basically the exact same thing, although it just says development. So is the idea both development and redevelopment? Because they're two different things. So, but I think when you read it, you just said development. So is redevelopment in here too?
That's right. So Councillor Grace had flagged that earlier as well. Given that this section was being updated in the bylaw, I did reflect the proposed change to condense those into one, not to remove redevelopment as a consideration, but it's to reflect the fact that the provincial planning statement definition of development includes redevelopment. So it was just an opportunity to reduce some redundancy.
Okay, further questions or comments? Councillor Helm.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just scroll back here. Sorry. It says in the municipality shall treat demolition, destruction, and inappropriate alteration or use of a cultural heritage resource as a last result. What kind of teeth do we have to do something like this? Or is this a matter of persuasion, or is there some legal recourse that we would have? Thank you.
So I think the legal recourse would be limited to sites that are designated or registered under the Ontario Heritage Act. So the distinction being there, a designated site has a protective bylaw associated with it. I was just looking today, there are, I think, 16 within all of Saugeen Shores. The register is a sort of maybe a buffer to function. So there's no specific bylaw associated, but if a demo permit came in, there would be a 60-day window for the town to consider whether designation should proceed. So in terms of legal recourses, I would say they're limited there. I think that policy is there to inform broader planning discussions. If a development proposal came forward, this can now be one of the many things that council weighs.
Okay, thank you for that. And in that's, and one, I should have said the numbers before, sorry, in 1.2.6.2 objectives, the town intends to define the unique character of different areas in town, including that of the town's character as community through a future policy or plan. What would that future policy or plan be? Like, would it be an additional changes to this or additional bylaws, or how would that be handled?
Yeah.
Mayor Charbonneau, thank you. Certainly there are recommendations in the master plan to define what character is and what compatibility means. And so we can through council direction, identify areas that we want to provide more examination on and make the recommendations for how to protect those, whether that's through planning policy or other zoning provisions or a permit system perhaps that outlines how they're to be identified, protected, conserved, and otherwise their character enhanced or maintained. When they say future, I mean, it's clearly that it's not now. We haven't identified any areas there that have a particular unique other than these objectives. And one of them is that Southampton has a particular character. But what about Southampton? It was very clear from our consultant in the consultation and the discussion is that we need to go the next step is to provide what are the specific features that should be preserved through or conserved through planning policy. Anyways, there we go.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mayat.
Thank you, Mr. Red. Just for clarification, we're going to be discussing this policy in the next phase, right? After we.
Yeah, right now we're asking questions and
Yeah.
then there'll be discussion after I close the public meeting and a decision.
Okay, so we'll have a chance to bring up any specific points during the discussion phase.
Yeah, now's the time to ask questions. And then at that point, you can tell us what you think of it once we close the meeting.
That's what I will do then.
Okay. Are there further, the deputy mayor?
Thank you. Further to what Councillor Halpin was saying, there is reference in the amendment tracker to the idea that we should be preparing a character statement and adopt it within the official plan. And there's an example given of looking at what the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake did. Yes, Niagara-on-the-Lake. What would be the timeline on addressing that specific thing? And the example here, it talks about character areas adopted in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake's 2019 official plan. I'm just curious what the process would be for us to work towards character statements, not just for Southampton, but for some other areas of Saugeen Shores as well. Just what kind of timeline is in that? Is this something maybe that would have to come up during budget time?
I think the short answer is yes. There are recommendations from the master plan as to the timeline. If you permit me a minute here, I can try to give some assessment of the timing of that because it wasn't a short-term answer. Let me just scroll to the. Whoa. Oh boy, of course I can't find it. No, I did the wrong section. I am in the wrong section. One more minute, Mayor Charbonneau. So.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time.
Yes, we put it at a, if I may, Mr. Mayor, at a long-term, sort of like it'll be in the next several years of the business planning, and an estimated cost of, depending on the scale and scope, between 30,000 and 200,000. 200,000 would be that you want to define the character of the whole town, you have to look at each of the neighborhoods, whereas a smaller study could look at defined neighborhoods. And that's if you get professional consultant advice for that sort of process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there further questions? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jake, on page 3, article 4, subsection is 1.2.6.2 objectives. D, I'll read it. It says to maintain the rural areas by directing the majority of growth to the Saugeen Shore settlement area. What are we saying there? Are we saying that we're just going to use what's currently available in the existing settlement area? That any expansion to a settlement area? Is caution about taking away agricultural land. I just don't quite understand what that, to maintain the rural areas. What does to maintain the rural areas mean?
Sure. Well, I would suggest that the policy isn't speaking to expansions or locking in existing. That's, as you know, contemplated elsewhere in county and local official plans. Given in the context of heritage conservation, I think the intent of this policy would be to suggest that the best way to preserve the heritage that we would associate with rural properties, such as large farm parcels, homesteads, that kind of thing, would be to continue to direct growth to the settlement area.
So to maintain the rural areas by directing the majority of growth, should it read to the existing Saugeen Shore settlement area, or not necessarily? It's just one word there, but is that what we're saying? That there should be the majority of growth to the existing Saugeen Shore settlement area?
I'd suggest not, because that the existing is we wouldn't. I know that expansion is a large topic, but this policy wouldn't want to lock in the boundaries specifically because of a heritage conservation. The boundary discussion is multifaceted.
Further questions or comments, Councillor, or questions? Only questions, Councillor Halpin.
Now I have to decide if this is a question or a comment.
I will offer latitude, Councillor Halpin.
Okay,
Ask your question.
In 2.4.5.2, it says the town shall not permit development on site alteration on adjacent lands to protected heritage properties unless the heritage attributes of the protected heritage property will be preserved as demonstrated through the cultural heritage impact assessment. But like, this is like a big step, because now you're not just talking about the property, you are now talking about the adjacent properties being influenced by that. Is this something that's found in other plans like this, or how did this end up in here? Thanks.
Sure, yeah. I understand the possible impact there. This is actually language from the provincial planning statement that has been in place for years. What this is doing is making sure that the local official plan is reflecting that. What I will note is that through the recent changes to the provincial planning statement, a very rigid definition of adjacent has been provided, which is properties which are contiguous, as in share a property boundary, share a property line. So I'd suggest in terms of the planning process, what this does is gives us a lot more confidence to flag something early in the pre-consultation phase, remove the element of surprise if it comes up later through public consultation. It's now very clear which properties could be, affected. And as I said, this would apply to those very limited number of properties which are officially protected in Saugeen Shores.
Okay, thank you. So how far could that go? Like, could someone say, like, I was on the Heritage Committee and I was proud to be part of having a couple more added to the registry and that, but could they say, oh, you can't put vinyl siding on your house because that doesn't match the historic of your neighboring house? Like, how far can this thing be pursued, and how far are we telling people what they can do on their property?
Sure. So the really key wording there is the heritage attributes. So in a designation bylaw, it would really clearly spell out, a heritage attribute of this home is diachromatic brick and a bay window. The neighboring development isn't going to impact the bricks on the house next door. It's not suggesting that new development must match what's beside. It could, where impacts could factor in is, say, one of the attributes of this protected property is the sight line from the waterfront. That's where, okay, so the neighboring property, maybe there's a tweak to a setback so that heritage attribute is maintained. But it's very narrowly contained to those heritage attributes which are specified in a designating bylaw.
Okay, thank you. So being as this is from the provincial policy statement, that means that we don't really have a choice about this? Would that be correct, having this part of it in it?
That's correct, yeah.
I'll go to Councillor Mayette and then back to the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm reserving my comments until the next section, but seeing as how the Vice Deputy Mayor brought up the rural component, which is in around what I wanted to talk about. The question then is, so I went through most of this. I think I read it all, and so there's nothing in here that will impact anything in the rural area. So if I want to tear down my 1863 heritage home in the country and put up a geodesic dome or a Frank Lloyd Wright-ish house, nothing in this can stop me from doing that. There's other planning considerations, of course, but this is only specific to within the settlement boundaries. Yes, that was a nod, yes, right? Okay, good, thank you.
The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks. Again, Jacob, 2.4.59. The town will require a cultural heritage impact assessment with any heritage application or development application that are likely to affect cultural heritage resources. Two questions. Is that also that statement out of the Ontario Heritage Act? And secondly, what are likely to affect cultural heritage resources? Just explain that.
And sorry, could you point me to a page number at the bottom of the amendment tracker there?
Page 97, Jake.
Okay, here we go. It looks like page, lost it. I'm scrolling.
Did you find it there, Jake, on 97? No?
Oh, just give me a sec. Yeah, page
Oh, I
4,
see.
page
So,
5.
Mike is reading the bylaw, not the tracker. So that's where our confusion's coming from. If you look, can you find it in the bylaw, Mike, and tell us what page it is on the bylaw? Jake, page 4 of the bylaw.
Sorry. Page 4, 2.4.5.9. The cultural heritage impact assessments be prepared by qualified heritage professionals. So it's a very expensive process, no doubt. But again, my question is, was that a clause out of the Heritage Act? And secondly, what do you mean when it says development applications are likely to affect cultural heritage resources?
The cultural heritage resources is a provincial planning statement term. What it broadly encompasses built heritage resources, which is most of what we end up talking about, buildings, but there are cultural heritage landscapes as well as archaeology sites.
Further questions? I have a couple of questions I might ask, and then others, if they have any, can chime in after. One, yeah. You can go first if you want. Yeah, sure, the deputy mayor.
Then you can have the last one before you close. Further to what Councillor Mayette said, if a structure in the rural part of Saugeen Shores actually is under a designation bylaw, there would be some impact from all of this. If that 1863, I think you said, 60, if that home was actually designated, there is something here that would relate to that, correct?
Not what we're looking at specifically, because the Saugeen Shores official plan only applies within the settlement area. So at that point, it's designated by the town's municipal processes, but county policy would be applicable.
And that's good to know. And I don't think we have any designated outside anyway, but there's another item in here which is about mature trees. So it says trees that have been identified as having cultural heritage value or interest shall be conserved. That also relates just to the settlement area because of the nature of the official plan. So you're nodding your head. Thank you.
Actually, it's fortuitous that the deputy mayor went first there, because actually one of my questions was with regard to that one that she just raised, 2.4.5.8, with respect to the trees. I mean, that raises an expectation, right? We'll put that in the official plan that we're going to conserve trees that have been identified as having cultural heritage value or interest. Like, what would the mechanism be? What mechanism? Like, don't designate trees, or maybe we can. Maybe you can. All right, so you can designate trees. I would never support that, just to be clear. But how do you designate a thing and conserve it that's alive? Can I designate you? Like, how do you do that?
I can just speak to one example I know of where the property designation bylaw did designate a mature maple tree, and provided language such that should the tree become diseased or be removed, the landowner shall plant another maple tree in its place. So we can't protect a tree indefinitely, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and that seems kind of silly, doesn't it? Because planting a tree that isn't the tree that you designated isn't fixing the problem, right? Unless the new tree, which is a sapling, is now designated. Like, the thing is confusing because it's alive. Living things can't be conserved. They just are, and they are, and at some point they're dead, right? Like, because just like me, right? I can't be conserved. I wish I could be, but I can't be. So anyway, maybe Walt Disney was, but anyway, the other question I have is with respect to a couple more questions, I guess, with respect to the character 1.2.6.2, the town intends to define the unique character of different areas, including the character as a community. Like, this seems like a very large and challenging thing to do. And then we're saying in here, we're setting up the expectation that we intend to do this. I'm not sure it's possible to define, like, even, we talk about Southampton. Southampton's a beautiful town, does have a great character, but that character is different in different parts of the town. Like, the character of Southampton east of the hospital is very different than the character of Southampton west of Huron Street. I'm worried about saying we intend to do it. I guess my question is, should we say that the municipality may define the unique characteristics. And that gives us an ability to try it, but also to not do it if we can't. Yeah, the manager.
Well, it came through in the master planning process, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that defining the character of the town or its unique areas within the town was required to be able to identify and protect the heritage resources through the official plan and Heritage Act processes. Just as a tree, I would say, just to expand on that, is that you're not identifying the tree, you're identifying that some element associated with the tree. So in the case of a tree, it might be that, oh, it was a gathering place and there was wooded area, but I'm off track. I think the idea in this case would be to identify the character. And that's why it was identified in the master plan, is that we needed to do it. If we wanted to protect trees, or if we wanted to protect areas of town, we had to define them. And so the intention of this isn't to say you have to do the whole town all at once, but council's in the driver's seat. We would bring forward recommendations to the business plan to identify areas. Maybe in year 1, it's this, year 2, it's that. Maybe over many years, you get the whole town is covered by the character's definitions. But it was a requirement if you wanted to designate and protect properties. Otherwise, you could do it tomorrow. You just have a dictum that says this is important, but it has no legal authority. It's important to have these definitions defensible through this process.
I'm confused by that. You're saying that we can't designate properties without first defining the character of the whole town or neighborhoods of the town?
What I'm saying, and it's good to clarify, is that if you designate areas, you have there needs to be a supporting document that says this is the character on which we base this decision.
If we designate areas.
Yes, not individual properties. It is in the rationale. Sorry, it's not clear, but I'm trying to make it clear.
No, I appreciate it. So just so we're clear then, if we weren't to require ourselves to define the character of the whole community, we could still pursue designation as we have been doing it throughout the history of the municipality up to this date. None of the designations we've done to date would not have been possible, or would be null and void if we didn't define the character of the community, right? Like, we could keep doing it the way we've been doing it. Planner?
I am on the right track.
Yes, you could keep doing it the way it's gone. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair enough. Yeah, thanks. Anyway, I'll maybe make some comments on that afterwards. My final question is with respect to 2.4.2.1. So the first part of that's pretty clear. Council shall adopt a municipal heritage registry of properties of cultural heritage value. This is part of the act and something that ought to be in the OP. Is the second part that is a bit concerning to me. Staff and/or municipal heritage committee may pursue the development and use of a comprehensive preliminary inventories of cultural heritage resource, may develop and use preliminary inventories. And I just wonder, what are we trying to do there? Like, why would we have preliminary? Seems to me we're setting up a scenario where we have an underground registry in the possession of the committee or in staff that hasn't come to council that can be used, that we're saying could be developed and used by the committee and staff. Why would we want to do that?
Well, the shortest answer is because council would provide the direction about how we would use it. And I want to emphasize, and we had a bit of a discussion over the last couple hours about this, is that this is not an operating manual. This doesn't tell us how we're going to do these things. So I would offer that if not an amendment to this OPA, it would be to say, as any list, preliminary or otherwise, is developed, council is in control about what is on that list and how that list is developed. So in the case of the specifics of 2.4.2.1, it would be that any list that is to be used as a comprehensive preliminary inventory would have to be approved by council. Not this policy on its own, but in a activating sort of principle.
Okay, so there was nothing in particular behind that, then, like the addition of that language, like that's not, where does it come from?
Yeah. Okay, I'll clarify. It comes from a sort of I guess I could say the outsider's perspective. Our consultant provided is they've advised that, it's one thing to have a designated properties list, register or registry but how are staff or the community or the even committee supposed to know whether they should examine certain properties without having some guiding document, which might be a list? And they just use the word preliminary list. We could change that to be guiding list or, a short list or long list or whatever it is. It's something that council is in control of, because I'm saying now, is to be clear that the beginning and the end of the process, council is the only authority that can make a decision on that. Everything else is a recommendation.
Okay, and so the use of the list would be subject to council. So anyway, we can discuss it, but some more clarity around that obviously I think is needed because it's not clear to me. So those are my questions. Are there any further questions at this stage? I don't see any. So we will then, let's flip a page here. So if there's no further questions from members of the committee of council, then I will now declare the public meeting to be closed, and I will read resolution. Now, this resolution is going to be as amended because the planner changed, he read into the record some changes that needed to be made. So the resolution will be that council adopt bylaw 72-2025 for local official plan amendment L 2025-011 cultural heritage amendment as amended, and that it be forwarded to Bruce County for approval. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Stack. So questions and comments on the resolution? Councillor Grace.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first question is the amendments as amended. Does that include some of those corrections and typos that I sent to you this afternoon? Through use.
It does not. I contained it to that single section that I had omitted, because that would substantially change the meaning. The remainder of what you identified, we would consider typographical clarification points, which we can revisit following passage.
Okay, thank you. A couple of other points, please. One suggestion that I have under 1.2.5.2, and this would be section G, where it's talking about proposals for demolition must demonstrate through a heritage impact assessment. So when I was reading that initially, my thought was, what is entailed in a heritage impact assessment? And you do go on in 2.4.5.4 to define and describe what that is. So I just was thinking, for easier reading, if you could consider just say in parentheses, see section 2.4.5.4. So if somebody is curious when they're reading this about what exactly does that entail, which is quite comprehensive, then they can go to that. That's a suggestion. With regard to the character of the community character discussion that you were talking about a minute ago, Mr. Mayor, just to keep in mind that the current designation process, as outlined by the province, now includes, well, it did include, I think, before, but now it requires two of the following characteristics or features. And one of those is talking about the sort of character of the neighborhood and the surrounding buildings and things like that. So that wouldn't be a huge change from the existing designation guidelines through the Ontario Heritage Act. This is also relates to this question of a preliminary inventory. Because when I was reading 2.4.2.1, where it says council shall adopt a municipal heritage register of properties of cultural heritage value or interest as required under section 27, part 4. Well, I find it extremely hypocritical that the province is saying that council shall adopt a municipal heritage register when it has mandated that properties that are not designated by January 1st, 2027 must be removed from these registers and will not be allowed to be back on for 5 years. So through the years, the Saugeen Shores Municipal Heritage Committees spent considerable time and effort constructing our heritage register, which is a very valuable resource of information, only to have it be threatened with about 90% or more of it being removed if properties aren't designated by the 2027 deadline. So I am really not quite sure why the province is saying this. It's a waste of time in a way. You could say, why are we doing this? Why are we spending all this time doing research on these properties if they're just going to be obliterated after January 1st, 2027? And so in our last term of our Heritage Committee, we talked about, but we never really got to the point of doing this. We just ran out of time. But we talked about creating sort of an informal heritage inventory of properties, and maybe including trees, just as a resource of information, without any sort of legal protection in terms of protection of that 60-day window to be protected from demolition. Anyway, I think if the county is recommending this wording, I think the county should advocate, as our Municipal Heritage Committee did. I'd like to see the county say, if municipal heritage registers are really important, then please tell the province that. Okay, a couple of other things, if I may. With regard to the trees, I'd love to see some kind of inventory. I know the deputy mayor has been talking and working on this for a long time. But trees tell stories. They tell stories of, why maybe I can give you a specific, the big tree down at Jerry's Fries. People are very emotionally connected to that huge tree. If anything happened to it, there would be a lot of sadness in the community. I mean, if it dies, then it dies. But if anybody tried to destroy it or, take it out, it would be, there'd be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth, I'm sure. So I think it would be great. I think that would be a great tour. And I liked the point about the encouraging the adaptive reuse of cultural heritage resources to meet housing needs, being creative that way. Of course, the recognition of the Cottage Streets design guidelines. I also would like us to explore, and I know this was in the recommendations of the Cultural Heritage Master Plan, tax reductions for designated heritage property and making grants and loans for heritage designated properties. And just one last thing, to toot the Municipal Heritage Committee's horn. If we're talking about public interest in cultural heritage, in terms of built heritage and cultural heritage, yesterday we did our first Jane's walking tour of Southampton, starting from the flag. We had about 75 people who went on that tour, and it was, I think, a great success. I was just so thrilled. People of all ages, children, young adults, teenagers, older adults. It was a really tangible expression of the public's interest in cultural heritage. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Further comments at this stage? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just to follow up on the tree thing, perhaps we could just have the trees as an informal, on an informal list, kind of like what, because in the heritage community, a lot of people were interested in having like a plaque, but didn't want to go through the whole thing of historical designation. And maybe we could do something like that with the trees, because like you say, they are a living thing. They get struck by lightning. Someone has kind of a historic tree and it starts to age and starts to drop branches, then they're going to want to remove it to protect their property and to protect life. So could we move to something like that, or could something like that be suggested?
Might just make a comment about it and staff can comment, but I think like everybody agrees, we want to keep all the trees. We don't want to cut any trees down, and I think Councilor Grace is absolutely right. Trees are emotional and they tell stories, and people live their lives next to trees and they become attached to trees. So they're important in the history of the community, undoubtedly. The only question is, like, when we say that something like whatever the language is, that trees shall be conserved, like that, we have language in here that says these trees shall be conserved. We are saying something there, and the public would have a right, were we to pass that language, to expect us to do that. And I would certainly expect us to do it if we said that. So what does that mean? And we have, as Councilor Helping You just noted, this idea of other mechanisms to do this. And we just passed the tree conservation bylaw, right? We have a whole set of policies now around protecting trees. And we can have more of those. Is the right thing to do from a heritage standpoint? Because we have to build a mechanism around that. Like, we're going to have to identify them, and then we're going to have to fulfill the shall be conserved piece. I just think I'm just not sure it fits in this heritage piece. That's not to say we don't want to protect trees. We do. We have lots of policies around that. We should keep those policies and beef them up. But I'm not sure this is the right place to do it. So I think I'm kind of thinking along the same lines you are, Councilor Halpin. Maybe we shouldn't do this here. Let's rely on all the rest of our good policies to protect trees. And also, final point, there's nothing preventing the Heritage Council or the Heritage Committee or other groups from identifying significant trees and telling their stories and doing tours of those trees and all sorts of things. We just don't necessarily have to have a commitment in our bylaw to conserve them. So anyway, that's my thinking on it. The Deputy Mayor, I'm sure, will have thoughts. The Deputy Mayor.
No, I just wanted to invite the community. The Horticultural Society's August meeting is a tree tour in Port Elgin. It's not necessarily historic trees, but it's to introduce, different trees that grow well in Port Elgin. And their September meeting, the speaker is coming from Tree Trust. Tree Trust is it's a national organization that it's groups of people that get together and they talk about historically significant trees, and they come up with fundraising and funding to adopt and take care of a couple of those trees with proper arborists and that sort of thing. So it's $10 for a membership to the Hort Society, but you can go to a meeting with $5 if you're not a member. But there's definitely 2 tree things coming up. I think just to move on from trees, once all of this settles, I think it would be really helpful to the community to put out some pretty clear language on what we mean by cultural heritage resources, because it's mentioned in a number of ways in here. And certainly designated properties, there's something very specific about those, and they have designation bylaws. Some of them are quite old, might be needing to have some updates, but they're very specific. But this document is suggesting there's other cultural heritage resources either in play or about to come into play. And I think it would just make for a nice statement to the community, like, this is what we mean by this category. But certainly, I see a lot of good in here. There's some things that and it's not just with trees, but the use of the word shall is very prescriptive. May is a little more opportunistic, I guess. So the use of the word shall definitely does imply that something should happen or will happen. And that is a little bit concerning in places. But generally speaking, it's a good update. But again, there's still some, it's a lengthy update. So there's a lot of opportunity here to question the use of the word may or the use of the word shall. I don't know whether that means we should vote against or defer, but because I don't want to see it stalled. However, I have some questions still about some of the language in here, but I don't want to hold up the process because it's already been months and months and months for this.
Okay, yeah, no, it would be good if council could advance it as quickly as possible. So we'll try and do that tonight. Councillor Halpin, I think I said, oh no, pardon me, it was Councillor Davinsky. Councillor Davinsky.
I just look like Bud. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, my comments have already been addressed. I was back to trees, and we could say cultural heritage value or interest may be conserved. And then it's not a yes or no. It could be. Can I ask the question through you? And maybe I should have asked this earlier. Does this line come from the direction of the province, or does it come from the direction of staff and through perhaps the consultant? Where did this trees come from? I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jake.
Yeah, the manager.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's not from the province. It's a way of expressing provincial policy in our way. And what we found was that the tree canopy plan was not the appropriate avenue. And so, but there was a few comments that came that trees are important to the community and there must be ways of celebrating and designating or highlighting trees within the community. And the tree canopy was not it. We were not going down the path of having a bylaw that said you shall not cut down that tree. It's private property. This is too intrusive. So we examined looking at it in the Cultural Heritage Master Plan. It was a recommendation that you could use the Heritage Act to identify trees. And it wasn't about the tree. It was what did the tree mean to the community? It was where an important document was signed, or Newton was sitting on his duff and an apple fell on his head. That's the tree, and so, you just celebrate it through this process. But I want to be in my main point is that it's very specific to a process here. This is trees that are identified as having cultural heritage value or interest. It's not just any tree. It has to be done through the process with a report, with a bylaw that has this recommendation of Heritage Committee and council approval. So it's not just, well, of course you have to respond to that. And that's why it's here. Of course, it's your bylaw, your policy, you can strike it if you want. So there.
Are there further comments? Councillor Davinsky?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that at least be alluded to in our heritage plan. Someone mentioned, Councillor Grace mentioned, of course, the tree at Jerry's Fries. You're absolutely right. There would be anarchy in the street if that just arbitrarily was cut down. But there should be something here. This is a good start. But someone mentioned maybe we should, I think it was Councillor Halpin, maybe we should move this off to the side and have like a subcommittee almost or whatever looking at trees. Well, if that's the case, let's put that line in 2.4.5.14 and say may be conserved. However, we have this avenue to go to and you can find this here. And it gives people an opportunity to to see what they can do under this particular item. But I think trees should be there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry, I got distracted. The clerk had a comment that she wanted to make.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So just speaking to comments made by the deputy mayor with regards to resources. And I just wanted to advise council that the Heritage Summer student who has been working very closely with the Heritage Committee is in the process of creating various assets to help with the communications out to the public and helping with the walking tours and such. And one of the items that is underway provides additional information about designations, heritage designations, and to provide additional information in discussions with planning staff about cultural heritage resources, the like other cultural heritage resources can be included in some of these communications.
Thank you. And just a comment I wanted to make, Jay, your comments there really clarified this tree matter for me because you made the comment that the only trees that will be, where shall be conserved will apply to are ones where council has designated them, right? So couldn't we just change the language to say trees that have been designated shall be conserved? And that way it's very clear that it's not this, because identified as having cultural heritage value and eventually it's very uncertain what that means. But if we just say trees that have been designated shall be conserved, that's a clear process and you can't, designation is something that's a pretty fixed process, right? That has to be done in a certain way and that would offer clarity. Can we do that?
Yeah, that would, I think, achieve the same policy objective. Given the pace at which the province changes heritage rules, the word designation may, like this may have more staying power than specifically using the word designation. In my opinion, it would not, in my opinion, as it's currently worded, does not expand the reach of the policy. But
you could appreciate though that somebody in the public reading this may say, well, I have identified X tree as having cultural significance, and that from their perspective would be enough, right? Or the community has identified it like this is the OP, so it's got to be about a process, right? So I think Mark just suggested perhaps then that trees that have been identified by council as having cultural heritage authority significance shall be conserved. Would that work?
Yeah, and I would suggest using that word cultural heritage significance, perhaps, rather than value or interest, because significance is a provincial planning statement defined term.
I would be fine by that. If we could identify that council does it, then that would satisfy me. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. That sounds fine. But we're back to the word shall.
Hmm.
And it's a black and white yes or no. And I wonder if that word should be may be conserved. There may be issues come up where it simply can't be done. I wonder if that would lessen the impact of us trying to be the overlord here. That tree stays, that tree goes, so on. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Sure, thank you. Further comments will come to Vice Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Stack.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the character of the neighborhood. In a committee of adjustment or planning meetings, time and time again, we hear comments about character of the neighborhood, and I just wanted to commend staff and yeah, in page 90 and going back to the revisions, but Jake, is it fair to assume that these revisions in red are all making their way into the bylaw then? I guess that's the plan.
That's right.
On page 90 there, and Mayor Charbonneau alluded to the fact that the character of the neighborhood east of Highway 21 or east of the hospital is totally different than, our waterfront cottage streets, for example, in Southampton. And one of the things I like in the recommended wording, you talked about the town intends to define unique character of the different areas of the town, including that of the town's character as a community through a future policy or plan. Is that something that the county staff plan to be recommending in the short term? Because the character of the neighborhood, it comes up time and time and time again, and that's probably a fairly extensive report, I'm assuming, that future policy or plan. Is that something we're looking at in the near, not too distant future, or how far off we for something like that?
Sorry, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, it would be a longer term response where we either would do it over many years, depending on, but it proposed in a business plan where both the workload requirements, whether it's external consultants, in-house, and then the cost would be presented through business plan. That's the intention of the report from May that outlines those future character studies. So.
Councillor Stack.
Just a couple of quick comments. So on this cultural heritage for a tree, I think my only comment is I wouldn't get too bogged down with the words, because if someone ever has an issue with a particular tree that needs to be cut down, we come and we provide all sorts of concessions to people on a case by case basis. I think our concern with the term shall, I think we've demonstrated time and time again, when it's necessary, we make the necessary and appropriate revisions to the plan through bylaw amendments to our bylaws to allow for it. So I'm not that fussed with the term shall or may. I don't think it's that relevant in the end, because we make changes as required. I just want to point to the notion of character of the town and this east and west concept. I've made this comment before, and I'd be remiss if I didn't. I get frustrated when we talk about this, because my experience has been we care a lot more about the culture on the west side of the highway, or the heritage and feel of the west side of the highway, and seem pretty indifferent to the east side. So I'll be very vocal if the plan seems to focus too much on the homes along the water and allows for everything to be changed on the east side, because we do have that tendency when we look at affordable housing, changing to developments. It seems that we are consistently willing to protect Southampton and the cottage front areas near Port Elgin, but seem pretty indifferent to the folks that live on the east side. And as someone who, lives on the east side, speaks to the folks on the east side, and is consistently frustrated with our fixation with the water, the community is more than just the waterfront, is more than just the west side of the highway. So if we're going to talk about, character of the town, just important to remember that there are folks who pay taxes on the east side, and they deserve just as much attention to the character as the folks near the water, which tends to be where we focus our attention. I'll speak to the cottage street studies, the constant listening to folks who come from Southampton and are concerned with the cultural heritage of their small strip of homes. Again, it's just a constant frustration of mine that there are two sides to this town who deserve equal protection.
Okay, thank you. Further comments, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. In reading what is here, and in the responses that I received earlier and that the Vice Deputy Mayor just received, in order to make any kind of comment related to character defensible, which is clear and defensible is used in here, we need to create these character statements. And I think that that's what Jay quoted earlier from a previous report. This cost estimate of $30,000 to $200,000 to define character. The conversation is just going to go on for years and years and years, because and by the time we get to defining it, it's all going to be changed anyway. I live on the east side of the highway too, so and there are interesting character areas on the east side of the highway, both in Southampton and in Port Elgin, that relate to settlement patterns and property owners who go back to the beginning of when Southampton and Port Elgin were created, who amassed great chunks of land, or where the train station was in Port Elgin, or where a factory was in Port Elgin. So it's not just related to the west side of the highway, but none of it applies without these character statements. And so if we're not going to get to those for a good long time, and they're going to cost an awful lot of money, we're just prolonging the whole process. So I don't, I had hoped that there might have been more of a comment here that kind of walked us, I guess, a little bit further along the definition of character, but it's still to come. And it's obviously going to cost us some money if we choose to go down that route. That's for this council or a future council to decide if they're going to spend that money to create these character statements. But it's almost every area of the community, even the newer areas, they're creating a character too. So it could relate to almost any part of Saugeen Shores.
Yeah, just the comment, I made the comment earlier, I made the comment again, like it's, the problem with it is that will be the actual defining of what that character is. Like what are the character of any of those neighborhoods? It's very difficult to say, like even, you know, even in the most historically consistent parts of town, there are construction spanning over 70 or 80 or 100 years, right? There's a whole bunch of character there. What would it be? Getting any kind of agreement on the character of any neighborhood, whether it's on the east side or the west side or the south side or the north side or wherever it is going to be pretty tough, I think. And so that's why I say, and I appreciate it, and Councillor Stack's quite right that you can get too held up in the language, too hung up in the language, but I do worry, I guess I worry, maybe unreasonably, but I worry about the things that we say to the public when we put words in these documents and making sure we can stand behind them. Because some people will read these very carefully and come to us and stand at the podium and say, you said that you intended to define the character of these neighborhoods and you haven't done it. When are you going to do it? And they'd be quite right to come and demand that if we said we were going to do it. So I worry about saying we intend to do it. Quite frankly, I'm not sure we will end up doing it because I don't know if it's possible. I worry it's not possible. So I'm pretty uncomfortable with that language. And again, and also there's a bit of language in here that I'm uncomfortable with. I'm uncomfortable with the piece about the heritage, about this list that this preliminary list. I think we need to, I appreciate what the Heritage Committee is doing there. They have a list, but properties that were once on the register that have come off the register. And I don't have any trouble with holding on to that. I just think when there are a list of properties, when we're listing private properties, council should say you can do that or you can't. Like it should come to council first. Council should say to the before, and I also don't want, part of it's about avoiding conflict with our committees, because I don't want our committee going off and developing a preliminary list and doing a lot of work, because it's a huge amount of work, and our staff, and then coming to council saying, well, we don't want this list. You know, don't do that, right? They should come to us before they do the work and say, we want to create a list. Here's where we're creating the list. And we say, yes, okay, or no, we'd rather you didn't. But that should happen here first, because it's kind of an invasive thing to do. So I have a few issues with the whole thing. I'm not certain that I could vote for it tonight with those without making some changes to it, particularly. And it's not that I don't like the overall concept or the work that's been done. I think it's good work, but there are some things in here that I just don't want us. I don't think I can get behind saying to the public, because I'm not confident that we can or will do them. So those are my views for whatever they're worth. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, the reason I raised the question about defining the unique character of the neighborhood is that Committee of Adjustment in our planning meetings, time and time again, we've all heard it from residents from the neighborhood. This is not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And Bruce County staff have to stand up, planning staff have to stand up and defend it. And how do you defend it? There's no statements that we can read anywhere. What's character mean? That's the only reason I raised it. It's in there. It says the town intends to define the unique character of the different areas of the town. My question was, if we're intending to do that, when is it going to be done? Is council even in support of that? That's the reason I raised it, because I read that same comment not long ago, where it's $30,000 to $200,000 to define those statements, those character statements. That's a lot of money. And perhaps we just deal with them as case by case as they come along. With Bruce County presents their planning documents, where we just deal with it one file at a time. So that's the reason I raised it, is that I wanted to draw attention to it, that it's in there. Intends to define unique character of different areas of the town. If we don't want that, we should be saying that. That's my.
Yeah, nope, thanks for those comments. Are there further comments? Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to character, I think that one of the most important methods of identifying character of a neighborhood would be its architectural forms. Doesn't all have to be the same. In fact, it's good if it's not all the same. But I would say types of, that you don't just have a bunch of new cookie cutter type homes that all look the same or are made of the same stone or building material or whatever it is. That there are fully developed gardens, that there are mature trees. Certainly in the Cottage Streets area, we're talking about narrower streets that are kind of windy, I guess you could say. Not very articulate, but what I'm trying to say is that I think that there are features that can be used as a base to define the character of an area. And I think it's important for us to try to do that, because another type of character can be everything looks like suburbia. And that when we take down a building, we put up a sort of generic, either a commercial building that looks the same as, 100 or 200 towns in Ontario or Canada. And I think that's when I talk about character, that's what I'm talking about. Now, when we're talking about committee of adjustment, I think there's a broader thing. I think people are talking about single family dwellings as opposed to multiple family dwellings, that kind of thing. Which doesn't have to, whether it accommodates one family or multiple families, doesn't necessarily, can be in keeping with the existing character. But I think that's what people are, at least that's what I think about when I think about character of a neighborhood. But it's difficult to define for sure, but I think it'd be a really good exercise.
Counselor Stack and then Halpin.
So I'm feeling spicy today. I think I just struggle with, frankly, I struggle with the official plans because we make changes to them all the time. And I think I'm just getting a bit frustrated because we've spent like an hour talking about the cultural master plan. Like, we have homeless people who, there are people who don't have housing sleeping at the library, and we have not spent any time talking about that, but we're sitting here arguing about whether a tree should be designated as a cultural site, whether the character, and I understand that's all important, but and maybe because I just think we make changes whenever it's suitable, whenever there's a case in front of us. That's the point of the committee of adjustments. I'm just frustrated that we're spending this much time and resources talking about the heritage of the community that will be protected if people want it to be protected, if there's an interest at the time. But we are not spending enough time talking about the fact that we have people who don't have housing and we have no plan to deal with it. In 5 months from now, it's going to be freezing cold and we have people sleeping at the library. Maybe I'm just saying this because I'm in a mood, but at some point I want to have a discussion about issues that matter to people's lives and ability to sustain our community across the economic spectrum, and spend a little less time about protecting trees or protecting heritage, because people who want that protected will fight to keep those homes there, the culture of, or the character of the town. I want to start talking about things that are preventing people from having housing or access to stable housing. That's the stuff we need to start talking about in this community. We are simply not talking about it enough. And I'm sort of at my max of these types of conversations consistently, and barely any discussion about how we're dealing with people in our community who are here and are not going in.
Okay, Counselor Halpin, and then I have a comment from the director, pardon me.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just Councillor Stack brings up a really good point. Thank you. But right now we're talking about this, and if you talk about what heritage districts and that. You know, what does this is a difficulty, but what does the cottage district mean? To me, the cottage district means commercial. It means cottage parks. It means tourists. It means restaurants and stuff like that. So I think if we're going to do any designation like that, I think there is a tendency of people to say, I want my private cottage protected from things that, you know, would make my multi-million-dollar private cottage, waterfront cottage, less valuable. But to me, the cottage district means cottage parks. It means ice cream stores. It means bed and breakfasts, you know? So I think if we're going to do that, we have to make sure that those things are protected as well.
Okay, thank you. The director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to talk a bit about, I think part of what they're struggling with here is we have 3 plans that are coming together, and it's a bit awkward to how they fit together. We have the official plan that we're recommending some amendments to. We have the Cultural Heritage Master Plan, which was endorsed a few months ago, and then we have the business plan. And I think one of the things that would be helpful to clarify for staff is the concern with the language around character. If it's about, we don't want to have to address it in our official plan, then the takeaway for staff would be to basically eliminate that section from the amendment. But I'm partly hearing that there's interest in that, but some concern that it's going to take so long, in which case that's really just a matter of changing what was endorsed in the Cultural Heritage Master Plan, which set out the timelines for these things. So the answers that Jay is giving around the timing for things, he's taking that from the Cultural Heritage Master Plan. But the official plan is the long-term direction of the community, and these policies are meant to be stable over time and robust over time, and not subject to an annual business plan process, which has its own value and merit in doing. So I think we're happy to make the revisions that there's the consensus for, but I'm not quite sure if I'm hearing we want the character policies deleted as a takeaway for revisions, or do we want to leave them as is, but accelerate the work in the business plan and bring that work forward more quickly? That would be something that would be helpful for staff as we consider the comments.
You know, I'm not sure council is clear on what it wants to do there, so I think that's why you're unclear. Councillor Halpin?
Through you, Mayor. I've often wondered, and I believe I've asked this before, why don't we just have the Bruce County plan and just have the pages that are ours? Why do we try to meld the two together all the time? It seems like a lot of work. So if we have to do whatever Bruce County does, we have the Bruce County, and then we have a chapter for Saugeen Shores, rather than meld everything together. Because it seems like the county changes something, then we have to change our plan because we have to follow the county. But, you know, is there logic in that? We have the county plan. We have one little book for Saugeen Shores.
I think that's an interesting conversation, but we should stay focused here rather than on the whole plan. Let's talk about these amendments that are before us. The broader official plan will come up for review at some point before too long. Well, if the county can ever get its updated, so we can have that conversation then perhaps. But let's try to get out of this conversation here in one piece. We've had a lot of conversation about this. Council's uncertain. I think what I can gather, if I can try to come up with some summary, is council is uncertain about some of these amendments. So I'll offer to council some options that it can take. Council could direct staff to take into account what you've heard, what they have heard from you, and try to come back with another crack at this thing that council could adopt. Council at this moment could, and I would like us to do this at this moment, if we're going to do it, is come up with a raft of amendments if you want to make them, and we'll vote them up and down, and we'll move this thing forward right now, if you want to do that. If you're not prepared to do that now, then I think the former option is the better one. Tell staff to come back and consider, although I will warn you that I'm not sure we've been very clear with staff, as the director has noted. So so what they could possibly do with what we've said to this point is a challenge. So alternatively, you could just defer it and you could think on it for a month and you could come back. But at that point, I would be much more insistent that we do something. So so there's a few options. You could defer it and come back. We take another crack at it just as it is. You direct staff to take what they've heard from you, try to come back with something, or you amend it right here, right now. We vote them up and down, and then we either pass or defeat the thing. Or, fourth option, I could call the question and we could vote it up or down as is. Any takers? Councilor Mayette.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it gets voted down right now, it has to be revised and come back. We're not just gonna put it through the shredder.
If it was voted down right now, it could not come back unless there was a motion to reconsider it. So I would certainly not recommend that as an approach. The bulk of this work is good work. So I would suggest we make some adjustments but not, if it looks like we're going to defeat it, I would really strongly encourage council not to defeat it at this moment. Councilor Mann.
As the mover, then I would change my motion to defer rather than to pass.
Okay, so you don't need to change your motion. You can make a new motion to defer. So it's moved by Councilor Mayette that we defer the matter until the next planning meeting. Is there a seconder for the resolution? Seconded by Councilor Grace. Any discussion on the motion to defer? Councilor Mayette on the motion to defer. Pardon me, Councilor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So during this period of deferment, we could be individually writing staff and putting in suggestions, et cetera, like that. Like there won't be a need for another public meeting so that we can just discuss with staff. Thank you.
Better ask staff that, the director.
I think the motion will need to be clear as to whether staff are being directed to take the comments that we've heard in the public meeting and this discussion, and whether this is the input and that this is all on the record and this is what we're taking away to make revisions based on, or whether it's more general than that.
I think if I can clarify, I think council does not know its mind on this matter. So I think it would be unfair to ask staff to try to come up with something else. We've got staff's recommendation. I think my understanding, and I look at the mover and seconder, is that this is just a motion to defer so council can digest this thing, get its mind made up and come back and make some decisions in a month's time. Am I right about that? Or do you want to give some specific direction, the mover?
I think I would envision if there are specific words or specific paragraphs that anybody on council wants to recommend for individual consideration at this future planning meeting, that they maybe send those in either through the clerk as a central repository or directly to staff to compile them, but being careful not to CC the whole council because we don't want to construe that into a meeting. But if you have ideas and you want to have those considered individually, I think it's a good idea to have those on a central repository.
Councilor Grace.
If we have made specific suggestions or requests, do we need to do that, or can we assume staff has taken note of those?
I think, and this is obviously up to council, but my thought is that we're deferring. If you have specific things you want to see changed or specific things you want to see changed, frame those up in the next month, come with a resolution to amend the document. Be prepared in a month's time. If there are things you don't like, to bring an amendment. We're not going to have a long debate in a month. You're going to come, we're going to make amendments. We're going to vote on those amendments. Then we're going to vote on the final question. So unless there's some great disagreement on that, obviously that's just me trying to summarize to move us ahead, but that's what I envision. Is anybody in disagreement with that approach? Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion to defer. It's on the table. Council's going to think on this for a month, come back and make a decision in a month's time. You can ask questions for clarification of staff, but we're not at this point. It's about decisions. So prepare yourself to make decisions in a month, right? If you need to change, bring a resolution to amend, right? Any questions or comments further on the motion to defer? Seeing none, all in favor of the deferral? That's carried. Thank you. All right. So now we're on to item 7 and 7.1 zoning bylaw amendment, ZED 2024-054 for Ray, and the planner, Julie, has that one. There she is. There, Julie, when you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very
this
quiet there, Julie. Just hold on 1 second. We're gotta figure out why you're so quiet. Maybe do you have any issue on your side, Julie? Like, try speaking
Nope.
again.
I'll just give it a go here. Can everybody hear me okay?
You're still pretty quiet there. Are you, you're on a headset, are you?
I am. Just one moment here. Let me try and take the headset out.
It's getting better now. Whatever you're doing, do that.
Let me make sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I think we hear you all right now. Everybody here okay?
I've
Yeah, I think we're good.
lost you guys, so just 1 sec here. I've lost my audio, but I think you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I might just continue and do this presentation right now, and then I'll see if I can get the questions if there are any after. So just to proceed with my presentation, this application has been to council before in April 2022. Comments were received from members of the public and council during that meeting. Some members expressed concerns with the exterior side yard setback, the side yard setback from Highway 21 in the proposal. Some of the other concerns were parking configuration, entrance considerations. A motion was made to defer the application so the applicant could review and respond to the issues raised. The applicant has considered the input from both the public and council. The applicant has provided a submission in response to the feedback. My presentation will focus on the changes proposed and the revised proposal. The applicant is proposing an exterior side yard setback of 20 meters, which conforms to the zoning bylaw and no longer requires relief. The previous submission was proposing an exterior side yard setback of 27 meters. The applicant has decreased the setback by 7 meters. The landscaped open space was initially proposed to be 34%, and the applicant has decreased the landscaped open space to 30%. This is a difference of 4%. On the site overall, the lot coverage of the landscape open space is conforming to the zoning bylaw. The applicant is also looking at a reduced percentage of landscape open space in the front yard. This would be the yard next to concession 6. The zoning bylaw requires half the landscaped open space to be provided in the front yard. The previous submission was proposing a percentage of 4.5%, whereas the applicant is now proposing 3.5%. The applicant has increased the relief required by 1%. 11% of the landscaped open space will be along Highway 21. The remaining open space is provided along the rear and interior yards. The applicant has requested relief in order to accommodate the entrance and parking spaces and next to concession 6. Given that most of the traffic volume occurs along Highway 21, staff find it reasonable to allow the requested relief. The purpose and intent of the landscape open space is being achieved through the proposal. A sidewalk along the north end of the site connecting the public sidewalk along Godrich Street is being provided. A proposed entrance exit along concession 6 has been located as far east on the site as possible to address concerns regarding potential traffic congestion at the intersection. The applicant is requesting relief from the parking aisle width of 7.3 meters to 7 meters, which was suggested by town staff during internal discussions. This change aligns more closely with the town's design guidelines, which supports pedestrian-oriented spaces. The reduced aisle allows for greater retention of more open space. The applicant is proposing a setback distance of 3.2 meters between the parking area and the street, which conforms to the zoning bylaw and no longer requires relief. The previous submission did propose a setback of 2 meters. The applicant has increased the setback by 1.2 meters. The applicant has provided a revised proposal that has 1 row of parking located along Highway 21 and 2 rows of parking behind the building to address concerns. The applicant is proposing 1 additional residential parking space from the previous submission, which is a total of 17 residential parking spaces, which conforms to the zoning bylaw. The applicant is also proposing a rear yard setback of 8.8 meters, whereas the initial submission was seeking a setback of 8 meters. The applicant has decreased the relief required by 0.8 meters. Site access from Highway 21 was considered, but not provided. The proposal conforms to town official plan policies. The town's engineering department reviewed the revised submission. Having 1 access instead of 2 reduces potential future conflicts with the intersection, and the shifting of the access and concession 6 further to the east improves the intersection functionality. Public comments were received from a neighbor adjacent to the property requesting that a strip of mature trees remain intact as part of the landscaping plan. The cedar trees appear to be located on the adjacent property. However, the applicant intends to have the cedars remain. Staff are recommending approval. Staff consider the changes to the proposal to be minor in nature and are recommending that council resolve that no further notice is necessary in accordance with the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act. And this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So there is a resolution. The council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z-2024-054 for Ray and bylaw 73-2025. And the council resolved that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor changes in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment in accordance with the provisions of Section 3417 of the Planning Act. As remover and seconder, Councillor Halpin and the Vice Deputy Mayor. Questions or comments from members? Start with the Deputy Mayor and then work our way down.
Thank you. I believe a question went to the planner related to on the revised, excuse me, site plan. I think it was just a missed reference to the sidewalk across the north end of the building. So that was clarified for me that there is an intention to put a pedestrian access route all the way around the building. I did want to ask though, in terms of pedestrian access from Goderich Street, there is a route in on the northerly extension of the property. However, with the stoplights at the corner, it's not clearly marked on the revised site plan, but there seems to be a little bit of a sidewalk there. There is an intention to create a safe corridor access road in from close to that stoplight. And I don't know, Julie, if you can hear what's coming from the chambers now, but it's just not marked on the revised site plan. But I think that that's what that means. Is that what that tiny little sidewalk situation, which is on the revised site plan, is it from Goderich Street intended to get somebody into this property?
If I may, through you, Mayor, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we hear you just fine. Go right ahead, Julie.
Okay, I think I've got my audio fixed. So I only heard a portion of that, so my apologies. But my understanding was it was related to a strip that's on the north side beside the bicycle parking. Is that correct? In a proposed 1.83 sidewalk connecting to Goderich?
No, I think, well, it did relate to that, but I think you clarified that is in fact a sidewalk, even though it's not marked on the revised site plan. The question was really about access more from the intersection from where the stoplights are. There's nothing marked there, but it looks on the revised site plan like there is a jutting in of a sidewalk. Is that the situation?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look. Are you looking at the multi-use path? I'm trying to. I think Candace can better assist with this question. And so I'm wondering if this question can be referred to Candace.
Of course it can. Candace.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. In the southwest corner of the property, adjacent to the property boundary within the boulevard that's owned by the town, there does appear to be a sidewalk extension leading to the property. These would be considered off-site works, and those can be discussed in more detail at the site plan control stage to allow access from the existing sidewalk to the property.
Thank you. Well, I would hope that they're not considered off-site in terms of taxpayers paying for them, that they just become part of the development, because the intention would be to bring people into this property. I did ask a question, and I'm not completely satisfied with the answer yet. The bicycle parking on the northerly edge or end of the property, there's nothing showing that shows a clear path in for somebody with a bicycle to get there. So I would just request that consideration be given as all of this takes shape, that there definitely be a route in there. We do discourage bikes to be ridden on sidewalks all throughout the community, but it would appear as though there are parking stalls right to the end on both sides of the building. So I think it's great that there's a bike parking area. I think it just should be taken into account that somehow or other those bikes have to get there. I also, so I'm not necessarily asking for what that route is, just the consideration be given that there should be a path for bikes to get there in a meaningful way without, if there are cars parked right to the ends of both of those lanes adjacent to the building on both sides. I did ask a question the last meeting about, or express a concern that, at some point we may be talking about a roundabout at this intersection. And I just wanted to make sure that has this kept going forward, that potential was not forgotten. And so I hope that came up in conversation. I do appreciate that the access road off of concession 6 was shifted down. And I think it will be a much better situation approaching that intersection to have a very clearly defined access road in instead of the very wide space that's there right now. So that to me is a very good improvement. But I do just hope that the potential related to the roundabout, that there's still the possibility there, whether or not it happens, but the possibility there that there is enough opportunity to do that at that intersection, because we have talked about it in the past and it probably will come up again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Halpin next, and we'll come to this side.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. First of all, I just, as I said last time this came up, I think it's such a great idea to have the mixture of commercial and residential. And, when you think about it, it's a shame we have one-story plazas on our main street. It's a shame they didn't all have units above them for rent to, to meet that housing need. And also, I like the idea that, you do have bike parking in there. As someone who likes to use their bike a lot in the summer, I'm often disappointed at businesses I bike to and the lack of places to lock your bike up when you go in to do business. So I'm glad to see those things, and I can fully support this.
Thank you. So we'll come to the Vice Deputy Mayor and then go down the tape.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to commend the developer. I think they listened, and I think the changes we asked for the most part, have been placed into the plan, and I'm really appreciative of the the enhanced landscape plan. I see there's white limelight hydrangeas along the highway, which is I know what they are because I have them in my yard, and also I googled Carl Forster's feathered reed grass, ornamental grass stalks up to 6 feet high, all along Highway 21, and I think that's going to make for, and 5 red maples. I think that's going to make for a really nice development along Highway 21, and welcoming message. So I think that's a good thing. I had the same question about the roundabout, and I did have an opportunity to speak with the developer, just asked that question about this little corner there that I think a deputy mayor asked about landscaping that perhaps last meeting, 22 meter at the south, I guess be southwest corner along Highway 21. But I thought that would be a nice opportunity for landscaping there too, but I understand that that space may be needed for a future roundabout, which is understandable. That extended multi-use path, asphalt path, I guess was maybe a question to Mark, our director. That would be a town responsibility, I'm assuming, to extend that asphalt pathway up to Lamont Sports Park?
The director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that would be considered off-site facility that would be in the town right of way and the town's responsibility.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'd like to commend the developer. I think they listened, and there was a letter that came through today about a row of cedar hedge that abut onto the trailer park to the east, mobile home park, I should say. Can we talk about that at all, or ask that question if that resident will be responded to by someone?
We can.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the planner.
The resident has been responded to. They've just provided a general comment, hoping for those line of cedar trees to remain. They are not located on this property. However, if there was any foliage or anything over the lot line, the applicant is intending to keep those cedar trees.
Okay. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to Julie on the landscaping, percentage of landscaping. The bylaw, I think, says that the front yard is supposed to be 15% minimum landscaped. And it looks like it's close. Is that right? 15%? Or am I right on that?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, the percentage in the front yard is supposed to be 15%. That is correct.
Okay.
The applicant is proposing 3.5%, because the front part of this application is to consider concession 6 as part of the front lot line.
Right, and if we consider then Goderich to be sort of the other front yard in a way, that would be along Highway 21, and that's 11%, I think.
That is correct. Yes.
So then just my question of clarification. I think your report said that the landscape open space is 30, the zoning bylaw requires 30%, and that's met. The planning justification report by Mr. Davidson says that it exceeds that 30%. So does that mean that the remainder of the landscape open space in the rear and interior yards is over 16%? Like how much does it exceed it by?
So this proposal is actually just exceeding the 30%. It's 30 point something percent. And that's the requirement in the bylaw. So the overall site is actually just slightly increased over 30%. It's so there isn't much of a difference.
Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Mayette, did you have a comment? Councillor Mayette?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I'm looking forward to this development going ahead. It's that corner has become increasingly eyesore-ish over the years, culminating with the current tenant. But I'm somewhat disappointed. When you look at the property right next door, it has 2 rows of parking out front, and the building is set back. Yet this one, we've made the stipulation that the 2 rows of parking have to be on the east side, and only 1 row parking out front. And I'm thinking about how people are going to access that building. So I imagine the 5 units of commercial will have storefronts. They'll want to face the street, either whether they're stores or whether they're office tenants, and they'll want to have their customers and perhaps their employees park out front. And this, this doesn't really allow for much parking out front, and I imagine the idea then is that all of the tenants of the 15 residential or 16 residential units will park in the rear? Is that the concept here? Because, you know, the parking should be, I think the parking should be out front the way it was originally proposed. But we've got a revision in front of us here now, and presumably the parties have spent considerable time considering this and come to this agreement, and I will support it. But I'm just going to express my disappointment that it couldn't conform with what you see right next door at the chiropractic clinic. They have a double row parking out front, and it seems to fit in good with the character in this, in what is a Saugeen Township, former Saugeen Township property. So I'll see how the further discussion goes, but I'm looking forward to it commencing anyway, and I'll support it however they see fit to propose it.
Okay, other comments, the deputy mayor?
With regard to the parking on the east side, I think there'll be a little bit of coverage from wind, so that's a good thing if you're a resident. So I understand the comment. I did want to just follow up on what the Vice Deputy Mayor said about the multi-use trail. It's there already. So the county installed it when they did work on concession, or we installed it when we did work. So and again, I do really appreciate the shifting of the access and having a very defined access into this property. But in the event that there's any damage to that multi-use trail, that's not external to, it should be part of a regular process, that if the trail the multi-use trail that's there that has been installed at taxpayer expense already, if there's damage to that, because of this project, that should just be, that should not be on the taxpayer's dime again. And so, but it's there already, so it's not an external work. So if there is some damage to that, it will be repaired to the condition that it's in right now. Is that a fair assessment?
Candace?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. There's a couple different agreements or approvals that will be required. So they'll enter into a site plan control agreement, and that could be a comment that is brought forward through that agreement. They'll also need a road occupancy permit from the town to allow for the shifting of the new entrance. And so that's my understanding, is that if there's disturbance to town lands as part of that process, then there would be opportunity to ensure that the lands that are owned by the town are left in a good state.
Okay, further comments? I just comment to appreciate the changes to the design. I think they're good changes. And certainly, I think maybe it was Vice Deputy Mayor said, I mean, it seemed clear the applicant listened to the comments that were made last time and made appropriate adjustments. And I think it's a good thing, frankly, to have, because this is the building, by moving it closer to the road, aligns better with the district design guidelines that the municipality has created, and also aligns with the zoning bylaw as written. It now conforms, then no longer requires that change in that setback zoning, so, you know, council set out a setback from the highway there, and it's being maintained. And I think that's important in the context of Highway 21 or Goddard Street in that area. So I think it's a positive change. And it's obviously, you look at we also got elevations. I think council, when we discussed this last, was looking for elevations, wanted pictures of the project. We got those too, which I'm sure everybody appreciates. And it's a beautiful looking development, and it's going to look really nice. And I think Councillor Mayette is right in saying that it will be nice to see that property enhanced, and also to get some, you know, it's another multi-residential development going in, increasing the number of more affordable forms of housing that we have in the community. So I think that's a positive development as well. So it's a good thing for the community, and I'm looking forward to seeing it under construction and completed. So certainly has my support. And with that, I'll ask if there's nothing further. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to item 12, bylaws. Two bylaws there for consideration. The resolution is that bylaws 72. Oh, sorry, you're right. Apologies. 72 didn't get put forward. So one bylaw for consideration. The resolution is that bylaw 73-2025 is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 14th day of July, 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by Davinsky. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And the confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw 74-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 14th day of July, 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by anybody? Stack. All in favor? Carried. And finally, the resolution that this regular council meeting of July 14th, 2025 hereby adjourns at 8:25 PM. Is there a mover and seconder? Stack and Grace, all in favor? Council stands adjourned, and hang on for the picture, everybody. We gotta get the picture. Don't go running off. We're supposed to get a picture. We need a picture for Cheryl. Yeah, Jay has to be in the picture too.